Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Justin here from the Biscuit Merchant, and coming at you live from the Biscuit Factory studio in South Central Ann Arbor, Michigan. Today, I am being interviewed by the Schaden Collective. So let's get into it. Yeah, that's a really good question. I wouldn't say it's necessarily a super conscious effort. It is mostly coming from my youth of listening to music by bands like Dream Theater and artists like Devin Townsend and Frank Zappa, King Crimson, a lot of progressive bands that they not only are progressive because they play, prog metal with the, really fast guitars and odd time signatures and things like that. It's more of an identity in how they create, in that they don't limit themselves to one particular style of music. So when I write, I'm not only influenced by that, but I'm also influenced by my diverse background of listening to all of these different styles of metal. I'm a humongous thrash metal fan. I grew up on Metallica and Megadeth and Slayer and Anthrax like everybody else, right? And I got into death metal after that. Cannibal Corpse, Death, Morbid Angel, Cryptopsy, and then moved into prog metal with Dream Theater and Devin Townsend, and then black metal with Mayhem and Emperor. And I just never stopped. I kept branching out and listening to different stuff, and whenever I discover a new metal subgenre, I just ingest it. I try to learn as much as I can about it, like, hey, what makes this style what it is? And as I do that, a byproduct of that is it starts to sort of leak into my writing. So that's how it happens. Honestly, I think there's been a conscious effort on some of my more recent albums to not do that as much. I've had people in the industry tell me that what I'm doing is too much, that it needs to be more, that I need to pick a lane, so to speak, and, really try and focus more on the death metal, or like, if you're going to be prog, go full prog. And I can't do it. The closest thing that I was able to do that with was probably Visible Scars. Like, that was probably the most unified statement, but even that has kind of a poppy ballad in it. Like, the chorus almost sounds like pop punk for The Wrath of the Watcher, and then it's got this really moody kind of ambient vibe that happens with The Collapse, the closing track. So it's the best I can do. I did listen to a lot of Death growing up, specifically the old Death. I love Symbolic and Sound of Perseverance as much as anybody else, but for me, if I'm picking a Death album to listen to, I'm reaching for Leprosy more frequently than anything else. Although maybe even Human, but Leprosy is where I kind of cut my teeth. That was the first real death metal album that I really dug into and kind of explored all of its intricacies and how the riffs are created, how the songs are structured. That was the big one for me. Other than that, I think, like I mentioned before, Devin Townsend is a huge influence on me, just because of the wide variety of music that he's made over the course of his career. Like, that's kind of the person that I aspire to be, in not holding oneself to one specific style or idea. Like, I think if you're a good musician, you should be able to play as many different styles as you possibly can. Yeah, it's mostly been people that I know in real life. I've tried to diversify a little bit. I had a collaborator named Rafael Guerra that I'd been working with for a very long time. Like, he did the covers for everything from Knucklewalker up until Unexplained Wounds, and he actually did album covers for the stuff that I was making back in the early 2010s that is not out anywhere anymore anyway. They were basically just instrumental demo tapes, but at the time I thought that they were great and perfectly worthy of being treated as a full album and should be listened to right in the same listening session as something like Iron Maiden, because I was ignorant. And but yeah, I wanted album covers for them, and he reached out to me and said, like, hey, you know, these things that you're making in Microsoft Paint are cool, but like I like using Photoshop, like, do you want me to, you know, make something? And yeah, he did a bunch of completely free work for me that I am really incredibly appreciative of. I love everything that we did together. And then Memento Mori, the artwork for that was made by my friend Alex. He's on Instagram, or at least he was for a while. I'm pretty sure he's still on Instagram as, I think, Mr. Void Self. Yeah, he did, the Memento Mori was like colored pencil work mostly. And yeah, that one came out incredible. I really liked how that one came out. And then Phobia was done by a real life friend of mine. He goes under the name Nitro Von Borax, and he is kind of a staple of the Ann Arbor music scene. Like, he was in a band called Borax a long time ago, and he sings in a band now called The Queen's Revenge. So yeah, and he does a lot of like really like kind of grotesque comic book inspired art, I would say. And yeah, I had a very particular vision for Phobia, and he went for it. It was really cool. And then yeah, the most recent two, Visible Scars and Tempora, I ended up enlisting the help of a guy I found on Instagram /Fiverr, who does Photoshop artwork, kind of like what Raphael was doing for me back in the day, but I don't know, just different, like more using of like stock imagery and, you know, going for more of a digital art idea rather than like pure like photo manipulation. And yeah, I love both of the works that he's done for me. I'll probably be going with his services again for the next one. We've already been talking about it a little bit. So yeah, that's how I find my artists. Mostly people that I've known in real life, but Fiverr has been a really cool resource to find people to collaborate with as well. Yeah, not really. I mean, yes, but no. It was, again, sort of inspired by the Devin Townsend idea of doing a little bit of everything, but also that is just how I write. You know, when I started the Biscuit Merchant, I really wanted to just have an outlet to put all of these riffs down to. Like, I had written hundreds of thrash riffs that I felt like would fit into songs, but I just hadn't done that. I didn't have a band to play with. I didn't have any way to get these ideas out on paper, so to speak. And that was my only real goal with it, was to just make instrumental music, kind of like Buckethead, really, just pure guitar worship. And as I grew as a musician, I went to music college, I started to play in a ska band where I had learned how to harmonize and, you know, get more deeply into like punk philosophies with songwriting. I started to become interested in the idea of doing everything totally on my own. Like, I have enjoyed all of the bands that I've played with over the years, but it was never scratching that particular itch that I had to make something super extreme with blast beats and harsh vocals and all of that stuff. And I had kind of steered away from it because I was like, well, I'm not that good of a drummer. Like, I can't do double kick. I can't do, I can't do harsh vocals. And then eventually I just said, you know what? The only way that you're going to learn how to do this is to just do it. So I took about a year probably, and I worked on becoming a better drummer and becoming a better singer. And then once I felt like I was at least passable, I started putting all of that effort into the first real Biscuit Merchant album, which is Knuckle Walker, that came out in 2017. Oh boy, I love this question. I love it so much. So you're completely right on the answer to this question is yes. Yes to all. Yeah, each Biscuit Merchant album is sort of like a yearly diary, so to speak, because I do release something new every year. So every album is written over the course of a year, and then it is recorded over the course of that same year. So like if you break it into thirds, like the first third of the year, so like from January to May, I'm kind of like promoting and taking interviews and, you know, playing shows and doing things like that. And then from May until about September, we are like in full writing, recording, editing mode. And then from October to December/January, that's when I send things off to Spencer, my mix engineer, and he puts his touches onto things. And then we send it off to Nelson, my mastering engineer, and he kind of just wraps a nice little bow around it. So it is a yearly project. And because of that, it comes out like kind of like a state of the music maker idea. Like every year every album that I listen back to, I remember exactly where I was, exactly what I was feeling, and exactly what was happening in my life to influence the music and the lyrics to come out this way. It's really interesting. Now, that said, I do put a lot of effort into making sure each album works as its own unit, but they are a part of a big, gigantic, multi-year project that I'm calling Alpha, where I'm releasing a new album every year that are each titled starting with a specific letter of the alphabet. And I've been releasing them out of order. Like I did Unexplained Wounds and then Memento Mori. So we went from U to M, and then we did Phobia, and then we did Visible Scars, and then this most recent one we did Tempora. And even though they're being released out of order, when you listen to them in alphabetical order, you will see that they flow into each other. Like the end of Tempora is very similar to the beginning of Unexplained Wounds, and the end of Unexplained Wounds kind of flows into Visible Scars. And that is highly purposeful. That is exactly what I'm doing. The end goal of this project is to have 26 albums that you can listen to all the way through in a row, and they will all sort of feel like almost like episodes of a TV show, really. Like you could listen to one or two in a row and be fine with it, or you could just binge through the entire thing and it'll support that decision, so to speak. So yeah, everything. They are standalone, but there is a very, very long, complicated thread that is connecting each of these albums. Absolutely. Our plans are to play shows and lots of them. It's been the most challenging process to get that all situated, both in finding the musicians and then getting rehearsals together and then getting shows together and then having to go play the shows. It is a lot of work. It is so much work, but it is, for all that effort I'm putting into it, is equal parts highly rewarding. I have really enjoyed the end result of going to the show and playing the show and meeting people, and sometimes people that I've never spoken to on Instagram or anywhere, and they'll come up to me at the show and they'll be like, hey, I really like your stuff. I've been listening since Unexplained Wounds. And I'm like, okay, like that's great. I had no idea, where have you been? But yeah, playing in a live setting is a really good way to not only reach new fans, but it sort of gives existing fans an outlet, a place to, come experience the music in a different way and to meet us. So it's been really cool. And like I said, very, very rewarding. I've enjoyed it a lot. Future plans, I would love to do a tour. I don't have the the means to do that, so I would need to, at the very least, probably work with a tour manager or a record label or something like that. But without giving away too much of that, we're working on it. Mostly, I would say yes, it is my vision. At least in terms of the songwriting. The one thing that I've thought about a little bit in the recording the album that's going to come out in 2026, a lot of the music for that so far is coming out a little bit less dense, I guess you could say, because I have really enjoyed hanging out with the rest of the guys in the band and just sort of jamming in between the songs that we're rehearsing. Like, you know, I'll play a riff and then, you know, Anton will put a drum to it, and then like Dan will play a little bass thing, and like Drew will add a little extra guitar thing. I've really enjoyed that. And I think subconsciously the way that my writing style has evolved for this next album is I'm really thinking about that. When I was doing all of the music from Tempora and before, I had no intention of ever playing any of that stuff live. So now with this next record that I'm making, I'm thinking a lot about playing it live. So the way that everything is being written is equal parts influenced by trying to play it live and making sure that it sounds good and is interesting to listen to in a studio setting as well. But that said, it is still mostly my vision. I'm thinking very intentionally about how I write the drum parts now and the bass as well, to make sure that they're fun to play in a live setting and to make sure that they make sense to play as well. But other than that, yeah, it's still all me. That is the most important question, depending on who you ask. So I'm gonna say it's fine. There are people that have such hard line opinions on this, and I think life is too short to say that no, this can never happen ever. I think there are situations where it's okay. I will say I don't really like ham and pineapple. I think if the whole point of the ham and pineapple idea is to have that salty sweet, I think you have to go all out and have some bacon on that. That's just me. So ham and pineapple, I could take it or leave it. Bacon and pineapple, yeah, I'm into that. Or maybe like a spicier pepperoni. I'm into that for sure. That it is a one-person project. I don't have a manager for social media. I don't have a tour manager. I don't have much of anything. I have myself. I have my mixing and mastering engineers. They take a humongous weight off of me when it comes to making the music sound good. That was something that I used to do myself, and very poorly, I might add. Other than that, my wife, Karen, has been a really incredible help with getting the live shows together. She's the one that runs the merch table and kind of helps with some of the bookkeeping and accounting and inventory and stuff like that. So she's been really helpful. She's our roadie as well. And yeah, obviously the other musicians, Anton, Dan, and Drew, have been awesome at what they've done to not only put in the time and effort to learn the songs and learn them well, and, you know, they put in the time to rehearse and they come and, play at the shows. And this is not exactly a trust fund project, so I don't have the financial means to pay all of their bills to do it either. I try to take care of them as best I can, but it's just not an incredibly lucrative money-making venture, unfortunately. But, you know, everybody that I've brought into the fold has very much earned their keep. I love all of the work that everyone has put in to help make this project more of a reality. But yeah, having to do most everything myself, like keeping that social media content train rolling, is exhausting. And then on top of that, I'm trying to, balance a full-time music teaching job and trying to write a new album and then make sure that I remember how to play all of the songs that we're trying to play live and remember all the lyrics and have to perform all of them. It's kind of exhausting, but I love it. I wouldn't have it any other way. Ugh, that is such a difficult question. It depends on what you're into, because even I will say, like, I would definitely recommend that you start with the most recent 5 records. So Unexplained Wounds, Memento Mori, Phobia, Visible Scars, or Tempora. All of those are perfectly fine starting points. I would not recommend starting with Journey to Arrhythmia or When Heart and Mind Collide, or if you can find some way to listen to Ongaku Nature Rejoices or Knuckle Walker, I would not start with those. Just because the production quality on those is not up to par. That was when I was mixing and mastering them myself, and they don't sound very good. If you've listened to all the other stuff and you are desperate for more, sure, go with that. But as of right now, those are not in what I would describe as listenable states. So, yeah, I feel like if you're into the more, like the death metal influences, I would say Visible Scars and Phobia both kind of toe that line between mellow death and maybe a little bit of grindcore in Visible Scars' case, but they're pretty much rooted in thrash metal with a little bit of melodic death touches. And then if you're into more progressive music, if you just want things that have a little bit more going on under the hood, I think Memento Mori and Tempora are going to be more to those folks liking. I mean, those have some long songs on it. Tempora has some like typical proggy keyboards on it. And Memento Mori, in spite of being like really doomy and groovy in a lot of places, it's still very mellow death influenced, but the ending song, The Celestials, is the closest thing to Dream Theater that I had done up until that point. And I would say mostly up until Tempora, that was the proggiest thing I'd ever done. So there's that. And then Unexplained Wounds, I think, is a good starting point too if you want to really experience the overall breadth of what I do, because it's a little bit of everything. It's proggy, it's doomy, there's parts that are full-on death metal, there's parts of Unexplained Wounds that basically feel like groove metal in a lot of places. The song Stereotype has like almost like a Rage Against the Machine sort of influence. Like it's got like a really groovy bass line to it. It's got drop D guitars. It's all there. And then of course you've got the doomier and proggier things like Uncanny Valley and Molecular. It's a full ride. It's I was not holding myself back on that album at all. If I was writing a song that I felt like was good enough for the album, it was going to go on no matter how different it felt from the song that came before it. It's a quiet time at the moment, a little bit. We just released Tempora on June 13th, so that's been out for just about a month as of this recording anyway. We have a show coming up on July 25th at the Sanctuary in Detroit. We're opening up for Annex Void and Outrun the Sunlight and Hubris. We are very excited for that show, and it's going to be awesome, although this may not be out by the time that show happens. I'm looking at potentially doing some shows in the October and November area, but again, that'll probably be local to Southeast Michigan. As for the future, I'm going to be working on the 2026 album, and we'll see. Streaming is great. It really, really is. I am not the biggest fan of different streaming services because of their various business practices, but all in all, I do very much appreciate platforms like Spotify, Bandcamp, and especially AmpWall because of the access, like the accessibility that my music has because of those platforms. The fact of the matter is, if we were doing this back in the 80s when we didn't have any of these things and we just had radio and playing shows, I don't know if this would even be possible. The fact that I can put my music up there and have someone ask about it and they can go stream it right away and determine whether or not they like it, that's good. That's a good thing. Now, yes, financially it doesn't do much. and that's okay. That's not what it's all about. Ultimately, I just want my music to reach people and I want people to enjoy it. That's it. So the best way to help me do that is to leave me a follow on Spotify. It helps the algorithm so that more people will hear my music in their radio playlists and it will be delivered to them through the almighty algorithm or whatever. Yeah, so follows, saving things. So like if you download one of my albums on Spotify, that is tremendously helpful. And then if you're still that type of person that likes to pay for digital music, that's great. Bandcamp is fine. Ampwall is better. Ampwall is a very cool platform. Bandcamp is fine. I know a lot of people have enormous Bandcamp collections that they want to continue cultivating, and that's great. And then probably the most interesting one is I do have a Patreon. I should probably be a little bit louder about it, but I do have a Patreon. And folks that subscribe to the Patreon, I have a lot of different goodies there. I do virtual guitar lessons. If people subscribe to the Patreon, you are eligible for a guitar lesson every year, which is pretty cool. And you get the albums early, and I've been doing a lot better about doing like a fairly lengthy Patreon exclusive text update of every month, even if there's nothing going on. Really, like there's times right now, like on July 1st, nothing's really going on in Biscuit Land right now, and that's okay. But even if there isn't anything crazy going on, I try to update there as much as I can. But yeah, those are the ways. But you know what? The best way to support me is whatever way works best for you. So if you want to just listen to my albums on Spotify and say nothing about it, that's cool. I appreciate you anyway. Okay. Well, thanks so much for watching. I really enjoyed this interview. The Schaden Collective folks came up with some really cool and introspective questions that I had a good time talking about. So, keep supporting this underground that we're developing. Keep supporting your underground metal, and keep supporting your underground journalists like the fine people at the Schaden Collective. All right, this has been Justin from the Biscuit Merchant. We'll see you soon.